question to the audience. Let's just think about 2024. That's already next year, so that's not way too far in the future. So we can still make some imaginations. What do you think the world looks like? Some hands? Some volunteers? What do you think that will change in 2024? If no one is going to raise their hand, it's going to be a long session. I will ask multiple questions during the session, so run away now. Anyone? Something like that, yeah? It really bump-started AI as sort of general acceptance now. Everyone is talking about AI, and especially ChatGPT. Something else that we're going to see in 2024. Not all at once. Well, at some point in life, you realize you're getting old. And my partner said to me, you know, you have this For You page. I was like, what is a For You page? But apparently, when you scroll on Instagram and you see all these images and pictures of everyone, that's the For You page. And I was like scrolling on LinkedIn on my timeline. But apparently, that's a For You page now. And I saw something from Gartner, and they publish like every day 2 reports. And they said in 2024, 65% of all application development will be low code. That was quite a bad day. Not sure if that's also for you guys, that you think 65%. I'm not feeling it. I don't know any client of mine that is actually doing a lot with low code, but apparently 65% is going to low code. So challenge, is low code dead? Is it not? So is it really like buried, or is it like burning? I don't know. What's your opinion on it? It's just growing. Anyone saying it's dead? Am I the only one? Everyone's like, I have no idea, I'll just shut up. No wrong answer, no good answer. Okay, no questions. I think we all have an opinion on, but what's the biggest downfall of low code? We all have heard of it, maybe seen it a little bit, seen it on YouTube or whatever, but what's really a big downfall of low code? Sorry? Shadow IT. Yeah, a lack of governance maybe. People just trying to build stuff and you have no idea what's happening. That could be something. Someone else? Sorry? Limitations, yeah, you will bump into limitations. Depending on your platform, you might overcome them with building some stuff for yourself, but then again, you start building. So I did this session before, and I asked some with the Chaos, it's something like that, Chaos. And they said, well, you have limited options to expand. You don't need developer skills. You can't do unit testing. It's not much functionality. Reviewing is terrible. You can't really do pull requests. There's no real maintenance support. It's chaos. It's overselling, hard to deploy. Vendor locking. People afraid to lose their job as a programmer. So all these kinds of things, that's actually what's been bothering people a lot. People recognize some stuff and think, yeah, that's something that I'm afraid of as well. It's a downfall, maybe. A bit of a recognizing position. So if we think about low code, it's very easy. You click on something and something will happen, and maybe you just type in some Excel language and everything's done for you. But, quick question, Power Platform, if we talk about that, how large is the licensing model? And it's just to understand what license you need. How much do you think? 1 page, 2 page, 4 page? A bazillion? No idea. It's long. Everyone agrees on that. It's a Microsoft license, yeah. It's very long, very complicated, and very expensive. That's sort of the key takeaway. Exactly. But it's 34 pages, and that's without all the dynamics modules that you have, etc. So just to get like the canvas applications that you can build with just click and drop, it's 34 pages just to get a license. So big respect for people that understand it, and they actually have the certifications that you can do with Microsoft technology. There's one specifically designed for Power Platform license. Just to show that you understand what they're selling. Respect for those people, right? So 34 pages just to understand a low-code platform from selling perspective. Okay, so return on investment, low-code, pro-code. If you really want to say I am going for no-code or low-code or pro-code, then I can already tell you it's not possible. Thank you very much, end of the session. But yeah, on the other hand, if that's true, then I wouldn't be standing here. So there's something to say about it, when something working, when not. But yeah, if we take a look at a typical low-code project, we start off with a very high development velocity. So we start building stuff and start clicking on stuff, and it's appearing on your screen, and sometimes it disappears. It depends on what you click. But we start out very high, and our complexity grows from your application. You start like, okay, how does my application roughly look like? That's set up very quickly, and then it needs to actually do something, because if a user clicks on your button, that's cool, but also that button needs to do something, right? Else it's just like a label without something. So you need to make a button work. And at one point, your velocity goes completely down, just like, and it's gone. Any idea why the velocity would be completely disappearing from your project? And this is always a tricky question to ask for low code.
Isn't it the ordinary 20-80 rule or 80-20 rule?
It's not really with low code. The problem with low code is, and someone said it, it's very limited. So at one point you need to do a custom component. So let's say people were at the .NET MAUI UI Awesome session there. Some other UI sessions, yeah, great. So basically, normally what you can say, okay, I want it to look like that, and I want it to look like this, and I stick in some state codes, etc., and it's working for you. But with low code, there's no option. It's just whatever they provide you, that's the limit. And so if you want to do something fancy, you need to create SVG components, or maybe write something in Azure, or integrate some different components. But you need someone that actually knows how to program. So you just hit the limit of no code, low code, and you need someone that actually knows how to write a line of C#, JavaScript, whatever it is that you need. But you need a skilled person in your team, and that's why the low code is going roughly down. On the other hand, with pro code, it's sort of predictable. You know what you need to do up front. You can scale it out, maybe assign a person that knows a little bit. So it's more predictive. So pro code, very good in predictability. And then we also have the expenses. So if you think about, okay, let's say I built an application in low code. I also built something in pro code. How does that look like over time? So we built like a new Amazon, and we start rolling that into production. Then it's roughly, we start out with our small user group. We set up some servers, some insights in there, some API management, and we start off with a certain amount of money that we need to spend and pay to Bill Gates or Satya Nadella nowadays. But we need to pay something. Over time, we get some new users, so it bumps up. Eventually, we get some more users, at least we hope so it bumps up again. And that's sort of how it looks for a standard pro code environment. Of course, you can have some fluctuations in there, maybe pay something for user licenses, etc. But if you go and take a look at low code, then typically it's all over the place. At one point you need licenses, you need to buy extra storage, you need to buy something that they made up that isn't out of the box in there, and you need another license because they need to sell 34 pages. So something in those pages is explaining all the gibberish on there, but there's a lot going on that you cannot predict up front. So for example, with Power Platform, you need to pay for your logging, and that's a separate pricing model from your overall thing, and there's some compression going on, but not entirely. And at one point you need to access it, and then it starts expanding, and you need to pay more for that same data that you already paid. And you have your storage model and your file model, and then you also need to pay for the license and the capacity, and for every user that logs on, and it starts paying and paying and paying. So it's very unpredictable if you want to say, okay, what's it going to cost me in 6 months? You probably cannot tell. So you can say, well, let's go all in on pro code. It's very predictable. I know what it's going to cost me. I know how I should build it. But maybe there's also a chance for low code, no code to actually take a sort of serious position in your toolkit. So for that, there are some criteria that most of us probably take a look at and rate for ourselves. So if we want to build something, we should have a certain velocity, a flexibility. Maybe also, how long does it take me to get to a certain state that I can actually build something? If I'm a low-code expert and I did something with Excel, starting to learn C# or Ruby on Rails, that's going to take quite a long time. Or maybe I don't have it. Also, you want to customize something, and how much does it actually cost to build? So with the development velocity, if we think about the pro code, we need to set up our environment. We need to decide on, okay, are we going to use Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code? Maybe something else, and you have to set it up. Maybe get a development server running just to test it in the cloud, etc. And you have low code. That's pretty good for that. So that's quickly, you get it out of the box. You just go to a website and you start clicking on stuff. There's nothing to it. You can start very quickly. And Fusion Dev, and that's maybe something new. But Fusion development is basically when you take the best out of low code. So I just take the platform for the UI customizations, and everything that I can fit inside of the box, I'll do that. And everything outside of that box, that will be pro code. So just think of it like, okay, I want to make a very heavy calculation. I'll use an Azure function, and everything that is not so heavy computational, I'll just stick it in my Excel query and place it on the Power Platform. Just to give you an idea on how Fusion Dev looks like. And Fusion Dev on development velocity, it's mediocre. You don't have to really set up your development environment because it's like, okay, I'm only going to use some C#, so probably Visual Studio is great for that. Click on the debug button and it works. So it's not a lot of time, but it's also not as quickly as just going to the website and start building. So it's in between. For your flexibility, Pro Code, very flexible. You can do whatever you want, and if it's not in there, you can customize it and it's there. Low code, well, it's not flexible. Someone thought of, okay, this is going to be handy, I'll provide it to you, and there it ends. So that's sort of the downfall of it. Fusion Dev, you have the flexibility of Pro Code, but you need to build it into a platform that is designed for people with no coding experience, and also doesn't really easily integrate most of the time with your Pro Code. So it's also meh. The time to get all skills, that's also very predictable. If I have to start learning Ruby on Rails and set up a server and get to know something about infra, that takes a lot of time. While on the other hand, for low code, I just click on a button, and if it doesn't work, I'm done. And that's sort of, this is my application, good luck with it. So it's pretty easy. And Fusion Dev, again, pretty mediocre. It's best of both worlds. The ease of customization, on the other hand, so we can be very flexible with Pro Code. But how easy is it to customize something? Well, you have to open your script again, do it, and do pull requests, and I don't know what. So it's very complicated sometimes to make a small customization. Even like just changing a single color in some element can be quite a pain, depending on if you're using CSS, for example. People arguing with CSS sometimes. I almost threw my laptop out of the window last week. CSS, it sucks. Cost of development. Yeah, Pro Code is pretty expensive. You need very skilled people, right? You need to have some people that know what they're doing. You need a security expert. You need someone from infra. You need someone from software engineering. You have a lot of people together just to build one application. While on the other hand, low code, and a lot of clients tell that to me, well, it's just something a student can build in 2 weeks, right? It's sort of what they really think that's happening, but on the other hand, you also need a team for that, so it's not a fair game. But it's still way better than Pro Code. And then the Fusion Dev, they have a team of low-code people, so a team of dummies, I would say, and then added with some Pro Code people, like the real engineers, right? The people like you, the die-hard people here. So that's sort of the mix that we have. And if you take a look at it, then you already can say, okay, Pro Code is quite losing it, you would say, on these terms. Low code's very good, and Fusion Dev is mediocre. But, and then we would be here, being mediocre might be good enough. So Fusion development might be a solution to get low code people and pro code people happy. But when is it actually working? And for that, we need to sort of take a look at the tools, who is going to use them, and for what. So if we think about no code, that's what people nowadays call citizen dev. Heard of it? Known term? Microsoft is heavily going on it. It's basically everyone can make something. That's their strategy. Think of it like Lego, with the 3+ years and the 10+ years and all the labels. But basically they're saying, like, with citizen dev, everyone can make everything. And it's a very bold statement. But it's sort of, with no code, you can make a lot of cool stuff. You know, with like PowerPoint, where you can click on shape and you add in a shape in PowerPoint. That is sort of their idea of no code. So citizen devs, anyone can build an app. It's not complicated, it doesn't do a lot, but it can get your first Excel macro out of the way and get that Excel question out of the way as well. So it's very handy for those people. And then low code, that's more of, okay, you already need to know a little bit about programming. Like if you in Excel do like a vertical lookup, at least you need to know, okay, how do I write a column? How does an array work? Something like that. So you need to have a little bit of knowledge, and that's typically your IT or power user, and they can customize certain applications with scripts already. That is sort of the playing field that the IT and power user is looking at nowadays. And then we have the pro code, and talking about platforms, basically they built their own plugins completely from scratch and they extend platforms with it. And of course, we all know pro code developers. We build complete applications. It's not even platform based, but thinking about platforms, and that's what we're going to with cloud, is they build plugins and code running on that as well for the future. So that's what we're looking at. So going away from no code and more into low code, you could ask what's a low code profile and who's going to use what tools. So typically we have an end user and a power user, and then I make a separation between business-led pro developer and enterprise IT developer. And I also am going to make some statements about them just to give you an idea who's going to use what. So first of all, we need to look at, is someone a full-time developer? And the end user and the power user typically are people that just do something, and at one point they get a problem in their work, they have no idea how to continue, and they want some help from IT. So that's a no. But on the other hand, the business-led pro developer, that's someone probably hired as an IT engineer or maybe like a systems engineer or someone that helps you when your email is not loading, those kind of people. And then the enterprise IT developer, that's the person that builds the applications that your entire company is using. That's sort of the 4 stages. On the preferred tools, so the end user, I think we can all assume what they are using. That's typically a no-code tool. And for the power users, that are users that are trying to Google stuff before asking you about a bug, and they mostly can write a script or maybe a macro for your Excel sheet that you don't want to touch. And then the business-led developer, that's someone that uses low code, but more as in it supports me. I can do pro code, but low code helps me accelerate my development. While enterprise IT development typically uses pro code. It needs to run solid, stable, it needs to be maintainable, you name it. So there's no way you can get away from pro code for that. So they also have a target group, right? So they have a certain tool, they have a certain development time, but who are they actually targeting? And your end user, that's typical, what's in it for me? That's the most selfish person in the lab. We probably all know those kind of people, right? If you say, okay, we're going to change something, the first question is, but why should I do that? That's always their question. The power user, that's people that are like, okay, let's do it together. They're really the team builders. The business-led developers, those work typically for a department. So maybe someone that's just doing something for finance can be a very good programmer, but also fixed on that department. Let's do something for finance. I don't care what everyone else thinks, but my department is running great. And then you have the enterprise IT developer. They don't care about anyone, but just about their applications. That's sort of the humanity sinks in at the end. But yeah, that's sort of the reality. So why do they use low code, you could ask? Well, it accelerates your project from begin to delivery. Instead of months, weeks, you can actually have something up and running in days. You can use it very, very greatly to make your prototypes. So let's say I have an ID. How can that work? Let's just try it in low code first before I set up an entire UI, make my interactions, you name it. So like you probably all used Figma or something like that before, or Canva, just to draw a rough sketch. Basically, you can have a working prototype with this as well in the same time it can take you to draw down a Figma. So test it, then make a proper design, and then start properly building it. But also to meet demand. And with meet demand, what I mean is we simply don't have enough engineers to build it. We need some new ways of getting more applications out there because there's more and more ask for proper applications. But also as a true developer, you can focus more on new technology and innovation. Normally you would first maybe start with like a website. Okay, I need a template to actually host my logic in and see if it works. And how does that work? With Azure, for example, you have the Face API. I'm not sure if someone used it. But basically you can take a picture of someone and then embed it into the database, and then it will start looking at face, very specific points at the face, and it knows, okay, that's that person. And how would you typically use that? Start with a website that has the webcam activated, and you need to put that in there and access all those things. So it can take quite a long time before you can start using that web API. But with low code, you can just click on create new app, okay? Capture image, and you're done. You can start using the backend already in just like a few minutes. And I tried it myself and it worked actually within a day. So focus on new tech and innovation can really help if you can focus on that innovation itself. It can improve communication with business, and that's always for a software engineer maybe a challenging thing. But people start using low code as well. So it's not only you building stuff. And now you have to start communicating with your business. Okay, you build it like that, but what do you want to achieve? So let's say at one point it needs to go into like a proper application. You need to understand what they built and what you should maintain. So there is a big of a challenge to talk with your business about what they want. But it helps you in improving the communication flow in your company. It can help to shape business initiatives because people have a very open way to actually start working with your technology. They can help you. They can say, okay, we have your application. It's not working, but we tried it out ourselves. And if we do it like that, it works for us. So they can actually provide a solution for you. So it can save you time in certain ways. And it can help you to actually free yourself from uninspiring tasks. So this kid like, oh, let's start another lecture from business, right? So you can actually start focusing on what you want to do and have business do something at their own pace in their own game. And once they agree on what it should be like, then they can come back to you. You know all those discussions about should it be green or should it be blue or should it be red? Let them figure it out before in a low-code tool and then come to you once they're agreed on it. So it's a very good transition that we're going to for business to actually do something for themselves. But then we also have some problems on when can this actually work. So we know how it should work and what's the idea about it. But if we take a simple application and when you think about, okay, we have a certain complexity that the business requires, maybe a lot of checks on a form, and if something is this, we go to that action. And in another way, we want that action to happen. So there's a lot of business complexity. It should match to that as well. But we also have scalability. Like if something runs for 10 million users, you look at a different scale than we have a department with 6 people doing something. So that's sort of the playing ground that we're at. And the first one, if we take a look at no code, if there's not real complexity involved in your process and there's not much scalability, you can pretty much use no code because you don't need to customize a lot. It's very self-containing. It's very quick to set up. But we also have low code, and you can easily use that when there is no real ask for scalability, but the complexity starts to grow. So we have a very complicated app, but not a lot of people use it. So you can probably say, okay, well, for those few people, we can agree on a sort of a waiting time, and then we have done it. So now the scalability is going to increase. We have the upper bar, and also business complexity. And on the first half, low code still can fit in. So maybe with scalability, you can say, okay, let's just take a few extra licenses, get some extra API calls, and some extra users can use the application. Solved it. But at one point, you need a lot of complexity, a lot of calculations, a lot of bandwidth, and the application starts like, no. There's no license that you can buy that will allow you to do this. And then you have the problem like, okay, now I need actually pro code. So that's sort of how a business can look at it on when is pro code actually working or not. And there are quite some examples of low code, no code, pro code, etc. And one of them that I want to show is actually Disney. And you see this website that's for investors of the Disney company. And they update like, okay, we released a new movie and it generated in 1 week this revenue, and we have another movie and there are some comic books coming out. And this entire webpage is actually built with WordPress. People used WordPress before? So what you see is what you get editor, you just drag stuff on it and it's done. So Disney, the multi-billion trillion company, is actually using WordPress just to say to the marketing department, good luck with the website, we don't care about it. And it's working for them. So you were actually expecting that this was probably designed and hosted by some really fancy people writing HTML in the basement somewhere. But no, it's just WordPress. And another example, Sandvik. Everyone knows that right here? No? No one knows Sandvik. It's like one of the biggest mining companies in the world. They also have like the biggest machines. I see like those pipelines and the conveyor belts and the diggers are there. They built like machines and they're in Germany now operating. It's a sort of digger, but it's like 150 meters tall. It's like if you're standing next to it, it's like there's no end at this machine. It's really impressive to stand next to it. It looks very small on a screen, but it's really big, really big. But what they actually did, and that's quite nice, they had this very old system that someone made up and they built it, and it was working when they were very small. But nowadays they have like thousands of miners and people all over the world, and they needed to speed it up. So they were like, okay, let's just think about it. It's not a core business, IT. So just take Microsoft's Power Platform, a low-code tool, and just stick everything that we have from IT basically in there. So their management on where are our machines, when do they need maintenance, etc. It's all now in Power Platform and Dynamics. So it's very cool to see that one of those very big companies doing everything with explosive, etc. Just using Power Platform to manage that. It's very cool. Also maybe a bit frightening, but it's cool. So we talked a lot about pro code, low code, fusion development, but what does it look like if pro code is actually going to meet low code? And this is a stock image of how that will look like, and it's for Microsoft. So basically what they say is that low code is basically for every developer, and a developer doesn't have to be an IT nerd, it can be everyone. So if it is someone at the reception just thinking, okay, but I need a tool to register who's calling or whatever, but everyone can be a developer. So you have your Power Apps and your Power Automate to make an application and communicate with something else. You have Power Virtual Agents, that's a chatbot. Power BI to visualize whatever is in that data source. But at one point, the flexibility stops in that toolkit, and the real developer at the bottom, the pro code developer first, they use their development tool, Visual Studio Code, maybe something else that's not Microsoft sponsored, but for now it's Microsoft. You can use your bot services, cognitive services, maybe run a container app integrated with API management. And that is where the pro code developer comes into play. So your low code developer is doing the top part, and your pro code developer is doing the lower part. And you can all stack it into GitHub, make your standard CI/CD pipelines, etc. So there's plenty of room to make it sort of almost professional, I would say. While in practice, you still get people like doing patches in production, hot fixes, they call it. Yeah, it's too bad, I know. And something we can say about, okay, we have the pro code and the low code, it's going to meet together. How is that going to look like from sort of a dependency perspective, but also a morale? So we have people now going into new perspectives, new technologies, new platforms. Well, if we take a look at the dependency on IT backlog, and that's the best advantage, coding, well, typically has a very high dependency on their backlog because the coding is designed around their backlog. But low code doesn't have much dependency. And now you can ask yourself, why do you still have a dependency on IT? Well, you still need the developer to make the custom components, right? So at some point you need to go to the development team and say, you know that component that you said that I would be needing? Yeah, I need it. Can you build it for me? And you have to ask them, and then it's put on the backlog at the bottom, and then at one point you have a big bag of money and then it will speed up. But that's sort of the situation where you still need your IT people. And then there's no code, and that sort of has almost no backlog anymore. Maybe at some point you need to ask them like, hey, I cannot get it to work, and they will need to explain you where you can change the layout of something. So maybe a bit of a troubleshoot for IT, but that's about it. But on the other hand, the morale and the innovation culture, it's sort of the opposite. When you're doing coding, you're probably using like, if you're now doing the MAUI stuff, you're really focused at MAUI. And you're trying to get into that as well and do everything with MAUI. And there are so many other tools that your innovation starts to stay low. But if you're not dependent on one specific language, one technique, one tool, then your drive for innovation becomes very high. So if you have to code stuff, you probably do what you already knew and you stay at that. And at some point you start YouTubing, see something new, maybe change your way of working at that point. But most of the time you stay at what you know. And with low code, things change around all the time. You need some new components. You say, hey, just build it for me and I'll implement it. So there's more innovation with low code. And with no code, on the other hand, those people typically think, yeah, the sky's the limit. Huh? Let's do everything that we can. And they have the very top of innovation. Not sure if it's the best innovation, but they are very innovative in their way of working. You probably have all seen like the Excel files with 10,000 rows and that's not working with the macros and the colors and it's not loading. That's the innovation. At least they're doing it, right? Big applause for that. So with low code versus pro code, you could ask yourself, okay, what side do I want to be? Do I want to be on team low code or do I want to be on team pro code? And now the question is, of course, low code, pro code, you guys are team pro code, right? Yeah, maybe. Ask this question tomorrow again and then we have an answer. Now, we're all pro code, right? So, are we Godzilla or are we King Kong? You want to be a fire spitting lizard, right? Or do you want to be a big monkey? Big monkey. I actually asked this question in Belgium once, and everyone was like Godzilla, and one person screamed, "I want to be King Kong." I was like, "Why do you want to be King Kong?" Well, it's a very big monkey, isn't it? It's like monkey versus chemically mutated fire-spitting lizard. Let's go for King Kong, of course. But the question now is, do you really want to be low code versus pro code, or do you want to be low code with pro code? It's a change of mindset. We always talk about versus, 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 but maybe it should be combined with, and get a bit more friendly mentality to it. So there needs to be a sort of change. And change is complicated. Humans are not really known to be very adaptive to change, right? We're very stubborn, very hard, and we have like the change curve with the curve with the denial, the anger, and the stages of depression, etc. That's typically a change curve. And just to give you an idea of how bad change actually is, that person down there drinking a can of Coca-Cola. Someone recognizes that man? Warren Buffett, exactly. And now you'd be asking Warren Buffett, who's that? Well, that's one of the most successful investors in the world. So if I'm going to talk about change, why would I put an investor there? Basically, his betting strategy, investment strategy, whatever you want to call it, is that nothing is going to change. So he basically put all his money on Coca-Cola, on oil, on gas, and said, well, it's not going to change forever. And he sort of was right for like ever. Nothing changed. He made his best bets based on companies that do like nothing innovative at all. He doesn't invest in cloud, nothing. Just like the simplicity of I buy a bottle of Coke every day, so it's working. That's human nature. We're very stubborn. So how are we going to make change? Well, if we take a look at Banksy, and this is a very good one, keep your coins, I want change. You can ask yourself the question, if we provide him with coins, is something going to change? Probably not. But if we provide the opportunity for change, that might work. So with citizen development, it's sort of having the idea that business itself can tackle their own problems with their own innovation and their own solutions. So it's sort of not making them dependent on IT, but make it work together with IT. So you're giving them actually the tools to say, okay, now you can fix your own problem, and if you really know what you want, you can come back to us and we can start expanding on it. So it's a completely different mindset. The people that we know as business typically are the what's in it for me people, you know? That whenever they want something, it's like they just thought about themselves and no idea what the impact would be for any other department, any other team, but it's just, I want something. So it's a mindset. And to be able to provide decent support to the business and the processes, the mindset of the users need to be activated. So we need to give them a new perception of how IT is going to solve their problems and give them also the idea that they're going to be involved. That's what we want to achieve with low-code, no-code tools. In the future, we want actually to have them working hand in hand together. So it's not really about hardcore IT fighting against business, trying to get rid of their sort of solutions in brackets, but it's really about working together. But why do we need those bonds? That would be a very big question. So if you think about the Industrial Revolution that we had, that was sort of the past, and at one point the Industrial Revolution came, we started to work with iron, and we built cars, and we could drive to our work. Really cool. We had the Digital Revolution, and that's what we're sort of now in, and that's going to give us the ability to work together at a distance. And we have Teams, we have Zoom, you name it, we have all these kind of technologies, so we can work wherever we want. But the question is, can we? And that is sort of what we are going towards to now, and it's the social revolution. And what we now want is basically we want to work in a way that supports our needs. So for ages we have been working like from 9 to 5, and before in the Industrial Revolution it was 16 hours a day work and 8 hours sleep. So at least we're now changing that to 8 hours per day work. But we want to work in a way that we can have our own life adapted to our work. So let's say you have children, in the morning you want to bring them to school, and in the evening you want to pick them up. There should be room for that, right? So your work needs to adapt around that. And we need to start working on our infrastructure. We need to change the way our applications work, our teams work, and our own actual work works. And we need to change our applications. But as we all know, demand for IT sucks. Sort of, does it suck? Well, the demand itself not, but the amount of people that we can provide, that sucks. So this is a picture of the vacancies that we had and the amount of jobs that we actually needed from America, because every image you look up on the internet is America. It's very hard to find something from Europe. So for now, it's just America. But at one point, they had like 7.9 million people working there, while they had a demand for 8.8 million. So it's like already 1 million for just one country. And then imagine all over the world, all the IT people. How many people do you need to fill that gap? Well, that's quite a lot. So where are we going to get them from? Well, actually from your community. And it's maybe scary for developers, but you have people that want to work together with you. That's the business. They are using the low-code tool. They can actually help you out. They can do some work for you. So your best bet to make it work is actually get a community and let it do them for you. So the idea, therefore, is that if you're Stack Overflowing your own problems, you can also say, hey, business, come to me, and they start running with their Excel scripts, right? But if you combine them and work together, then you get something like hype overloads. And I was waiting for that the entire session. But it's sort of getting together and grow a community and start building your idea around it. So in short, if you want to really make it a success and start adopting low-code, no-code for your future, and get the best out of it, low-code is not going to help you scale massive applications. It's also not going to help you make useful complex applications. You can build complex applications really easy, but they're not useful. You can be flexible with it. That's a big plus. You can collaborate on development, right? Let them build whatever they want, and you can do the complex stuff so it fits with your enterprise architecture. And yeah, it's management solutions end-to-end. It's a tricky one. But it will sell itself, since there's a community that's very active on it. Everyone in your company wants to build the next greatest thing for their work and get their promotion. So it's really a promotion drive. But it will be a major part of any business in the future, sadly. Gartner predicted it, so it must be true, right? It will allow you to focus on interesting and complex problems. You can collaborate on your business development, really start working with that business. You can manage businesses end-to-end now, because you have the benefits of the pro code, but also the no-code stuff. And you can build a community that adopts faster to your awesome applications, since you're already known with your applications. So it's not about low-code, pro-code versus each other. There is no real choice. But we can say when it's the better option, no. But it will be brothers in arms together, I would say. So in the future, it's going to be a part of your business, sadly. We will not go away. Thank you very much.